Violence against our children is violence against everyone, is violence against an entire nation. And we must all stand up together to ensure that it does not continue. Because when we're working together, we're working towards success and towards positive outcomes. Yesterday on Weekend Deal, we focused on stories from Kano, where we talked about Hanifa, we talked about Jibrin Mato from Maiduguri, and there's been Aisha, there's been Asmao, and God alone knows how many more. But we want to talk about it on Weekend because we want to bring it to our attention on the national level and work conclusively towards bringing it to an end. My name is Thelma Obaze.
My name is Suleiman Babajia Usman. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. And from what our guests said yesterday, we still have a long way to go in ensuring that we create a safe environment for the children.
Violence against one is violence against all of us. And that's why this clarion call is being championed from us here. Yesterday, when we're talking with our special guest, former ambassador of Nigeria to the Gambia, Madam Esther John Audu, she talked about the role of parents in entrenching values in their children, and also schools and their facilitators negating their essence and leaving their responsibilities for the parents who are even at home while the kids are with them. But let's learn more. Francis took time out. This is part 2, violence against children.
Violence against children is a pervasive problem, with 6 out of every 10 children in the country suffering one or more forms of physical, sexual, or emotional violence before they reach the age of 18.
Violence generally is an act of causing pain, sorrow, physical pain to humans generally. And here, in this scenario, children, and sadly, school-age children. In fact, we've lost our humanity. And I think it has to do with this societal thing, get-rich-quick syndrome.
The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, has identified parents, teachers, caregivers, as well as neighbors as major perpetrators of violence against children in Nigeria.
I was actually just shocked. I just couldn't believe it, and to think it was someone that she trusted, someone that was close to home, which is usually the story almost all the time. To see that keeps happening is just really sad. If we had to go by research, if we had to go by data, it's usually those that are closest to the children. It's usually those that are familiar with the children, that have easier access to these children, that commit this crime.
Going back to the Hanifa case, why she had agreed to follow the Abdul Malik, the guy, the school proprietor, was because she knows him very well. He sent two persons to go and kidnap the girl. When the girl got there, when those 2 persons got there, she didn't know them, she didn't follow them. He had to calm down himself and, okay, it's uncle, okay, uncle, she'd gladly followed him. So that's the scenario. People tend to abuse that trust.
Parents need to be alive to their responsibilities. Many parents have abandoned their functions to the school. It is the responsibility of the parents to teach their children basic values, such as politeness and courtesy. The school is meant to reinforce the training parents give their children.
This 21st century parenting is something else that one is very scared about. Parents don't really take their own responsibility. I agree. Even if we cannot wholly blame parents, but I think parents should carry about 80 to 85% of the blame, because you need to know what your child does, keep an eye on him, watch over him, his activities, the kind of friends he keeps, the thing he does and all of that.
Be a bit unfair to just blame parents and say, oh, you're not a good parent. Sometimes most children have come from really good backgrounds, really good parenting, and yet they end up being perpetrators of crime, and you wonder where's the disconnect there. Do parents have a role to play in making sure that their children turn out to be well-meaning members of society? 100%. Parents do have a role to play, and we as society also do have a role to play, because we are also proxy parents. You know, when we come in contact with children, how do we talk to them? How do we respond to them? When children complain to us, a lot of the times it's about, oh, talk to your children, talk to your children. But do you listen to your children? Do you have time to spend with your children? Do you even know what is important to them and the things that they like?
The schools are the most influential institution for children after the family. Schools can provide a protective environment in which children can gain the knowledge and skills they need to navigate adult life. Schools can also buffer children from the adversaries they may face at home or community settings. But for too many children today, schools are not safe places any longer.
Previously, there are inspectors that come to schools unannounced sometimes. They will not even allow, they just come and see what schools are doing. But right now, like I said, that is a very fundamental issue that we must grab, that we will have to come into reality with. The Federal Ministry of Education must come and weigh into this situation, because the activities of private schools, it's so bad.
The school does have a responsibility to be a protective place, because a lot of the times we go there, we learn social skills, we learn emotional skills, behavioral skills, we learn it from the environment and the schools that we go to. One of the things that schools can do for children is to teach them values. Values that contribute positively to society, and encourage that positive characteristics. And when people are deviating, some form of punishment to correct behavior. We're not saying flog them until they start to bleed.
With the increasing rate of violence against children, one wonders if religious institutions are living up to their responsibilities.
They have a role to play, but the issue still goes back to the parents, and the religious leaders, the community leaders would really have to do a whole lot of engagement and enlightenment.
There's a lot of silent culture around abuse. And we're protecting perpetrators a lot more often than we're protecting the victims. It's because you wore that dress, it's because you're looking at him a certain way. And it has nothing to do with what you're wearing or how you look. It's just about the perpetrator committing that crime. And so we need to start to learn to protect people who are vulnerable in the society. We need to start to learn to protect people who are victims of this.
Our focus on Weekend Deal, therefore, will be on addressing the challenges of violence against children.
Well, this issue certainly must be tackled in our society, because, Thelma, the parents certainly must be alive to their responsibility, in the sense that, yes, the school also will play their part, but you as parents, you must ensure that you inculcate those values and train them the right way. Things are changing. Times are changing. It's not like we're living in the 80s before. Like, technology is really, really advancing, and we must, adapt to the changes in our reality in order to meet our children where they are.
Indeed. The same way times have changed, the children we're raising are not like we were.
Yeah.
So if we adapt to the times, we must adapt to what our children need and bring up specific methods to bring out the best in them.
And then I know it shouldn't be like a debate, but in some quarters now it's a debate. So whose responsibility is it to train the child? Is it the parents or the school? And this, or even the house help sometimes. But the parents definitely cannot escape this responsibility. But let's take a look at this next feature that borders on whose responsibility is it to train the children, the home or the school.
For decades, the boarding house system in Nigeria has been a preferred choice, as it has presented a lot of advantages, including social maturity, peer learning, and small class sizes. However, with the current level of insecurity and moral decadence in schools, the media has been awash with stories of physical and sexual abuses and gross bullying, especially in boarding schools. The boarding system is worse than what it used to be, with eroded moral values, parents wielding their influence and affluence as a tool, and school management being focused on financial sustainability of their business instead of character development of the child.
My experience was quite bad because when a junior is bullied, you feel oppressed and you feel as if you have been killed or you are dead. Our education board should try and educate them to stop bullying the junior ones, and they should try to stop the senior ones from coming to junior schools.
I was working one day with my friends and they just asked me to wait, that they have money with me. It was not like I don't have money. They now say I should go and look for money to give them. It was not like why. Then one of them now slapped me. Someone has not even eaten for 3 days now, and now you just want to go and bully the person. You just by mistakenly even hits the person and the person faints. Then the person dies.
Worried by the growing level of moral decadence plaguing the Nigerian boarding system, the Legal Assistance and Citizens' Rights Initiative, which is an organization committed to protect the weak, has called a review of the boarding school system. What brought about these rising cases of violence in boarding schools? Are schools failing in their responsibilities?
My younger sister was a victim of bullying. Actually, we lost her 3 years ago. And so it started with the verbal abuse, and then they started alienating her from the rest. And then it got to an extent where she got threatened by the senior students in school with a gun. Actually, yes. They put a gun to her head and they threatened her. And that was the beginning of her complications. She started having serious headaches that were unexplained, and eventually it led to her death. When our father reported and he wanted to take it up with the court and he said he was going to report the case, the school were like, no, this boy is so child, we don't want to drag his father's name to the mud. And that was how the case ended. I was a teacher actually in a private school here in Abuja, and I saw how these children behaved. A child will look you up in the eyes and he will tell you, how dare you scold me? Yes, my dad is so. So these are the kind of decays we have. And even if a school actually goes ahead to suspend a child based on such behaviors, the schools get backlashed from the parents because they feel they have the power. There's a lot of abuse of power actually. And so that's the reason why children get they go scot-free, because there's no punishment. There were so many rules you're not supposed to go against, and if you do go against it, you get punished, you get suspended, to some extent you get expelled. But nowadays you go to especially private schools, unfortunately we don't have discipline committees. Before we used to have discipline masters or mistresses. There was guidance and counseling teachers, but for schools nowadays, we hardly see these things put in place, and these are measures that should be in place to bring an end to the menace. Parents are complaining bitterly. This seniority mentality, it's an issue. It is an issue. Students feel, I am like a year older than you in school, you have to do this. My parents didn't send me to school to go wash your blankets for you, to go wash your sweaters, to go fetch you water. We're all equal in school. So I don't know, the moment schools start abolishing this seniority mentality and then putting some measures in place and then listening to parents and then punishing those who are found guilty, I think a lot of things will be better. So we have to start looking inwards. Us as parents, how do we tackle issues of bullying right from home, and then we take it up to schools? And then parents who fight in front of their children should stop.
Recently, a 12-year-old student in a prestigious boarding school in Lagos was allegedly bullied by a set of senior students and lost his life. Parents who use boarding services are encouraged to periodically visit their children's schools, observe their actions, and check out for unusual behavioral changes in their wards.
Thank you, NTA Abuja. The truth must be said. Some children say words that even some adults can't say to adults. We won't say the parents negated their responsibility, but perhaps they gave them too much leeway and they ignored the red flags. There are often red flags that we can contain early on, but once they get out of hand, who knows?
Well, and the another aspect of it is the fact that this supervision, this inspection, which must be seen to be active. And this is one challenge because a lot of times you have schools around, and then you don't have anybody that is keeping an eye on these schools, even if things that they are doing in that school are not supposed to be, but you don't have anybody to check. And that's why the Kano State government quickly suspended the license of almost all the private schools in the state, that before they have to reapply, verify before the license are given back to them. A lot of people are actually calling on other states to do same.
If you negate your responsibility at any level, either as a parent, either as a teacher, a member of the society, just know that one child somewhere or many children somewhere are being made vulnerable to these hawks out there. But Sule, let's get to meet our guest.
Well, and of course, our guest is a very interesting one. He is a barrister, Ustaz Mustafa Agbariri, and of course, public affairs analyst and also imam of one of the mosques in Abuja. You're welcome to our studios.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
Well, you've been seeing series of reports since you've been sitting here, different views coming from different people with different backgrounds. Just how did we get to this point?
Well, thank you for the question. I'm so worried and so sad with the development of the parenting, including the guardianship and educational values and moral inculcations as well. I'm sad because the events that are now turning out nowadays, especially in our schools and also in our educational institution, and also within the community where the parents will have their responsibilities being thrown away. So that made me to be sad. See the case of Kano. The Kano case study is so pathetic. You send your child to the school, and it is the same school where your child got killed. It's sad. It tells you that not only that you're saying that the educational institutions should be fortified with security, be fenced, be monitored by CCTV, this and that. It goes beyond that. You put your child in a school, you entrusted your child in an institution. And before you know, that institution made that child to pay for the price of taking him there to go and get education. How did we get there? It tells us that our moral value has decayed, both from the leadership, especially the people in the ministry, who have the responsibility of doing the due diligence about the school establishment. I'm talking about the Ministry of Education. Take it from the head, from the Federal Ministry of Education, also to down the ladder, the State Ministry of Education. You have to have the checklist, the personality of the people who are behind the scene, who want to establish the school. Have you asked them to know about them, know their mentor, their own background, including their financial status? Somebody can just say, okay, I want to establish school in order to make money. It doesn't have value to add to the children or even to the community.
We've identified this. There's a challenge with Abdul Malik Tanko. Perhaps there's a mental challenge because he's just 30, but he's a father, he's a husband.
Yes.
He has a home and he has children under his care. So he's a father in two places.
Exactly.
But he negated that responsibility drastically.
Yes.
But there should have been checks and balances.
Yes.
Okay, we've passed where was given the license.
Okay.
What about the checks? Because I know that I have relatives who have schools and they're just telling us, inspectors are coming this week. We have to put things in place.
Exactly.
Where were the inspectors or those meant to conduct checks? What happened at that point?
Yes, I said something about that. Earlier on, I said about the leadership, the supervisory level as well, that they are also liable. The inspectors should be up and doing. This is a time for us to know that, yes, we can't take our children to the environment where they are not safe again. Those inspectors have something to do about knowing the safety of the children that we entrust in an environment. They should be going there from time to time. They should have a register of knowing how many pupils do we have in the class. They should also know whether if a child is missing in the school, what attributed to it, what caused it. They should make this institution to be answerable to the safety, to the welfare, to the well-being of the pupil in that school. Those inspectors have a role. Like I said, something again is very important. Parents too. Because let's say, okay, the inspector do not do what they should do, but you are the one that will be hard hit when this thing happens. When they kidnap the child and they kill or something like that in the school, or your child is not safe in the school, you are the one that will be hard hit. Why don't you know this type of school you're taking your child to?
But can I say something here? Because we've had schools with very beautiful buildings, lovely edifices, with those at the helm, have degrees upon degrees, PhD and beyond.
Yes.
I want to talk as a parent, as a Nigerian,
yes,
as someone who went to school as well. It may be challenging for a parent to do due diligence. We can only do to the extent that the info is available to us. Because in this case, Abdul Malik Tanko School may not have been an edifice, but we have schools, talking about what happened in Lagos.
Exactly.
A renowned college.
Yes.
A citadel of learning from all indications.
Yes.
But in there was
children.
rot.
Yes. You can now see that it's a cycle, like I said in the beginning. Let us now depart from the issue of the building now. From the issue of the outlook of the place where you are taking your child. Let's now go to the inward. That is what is inside the school. Now, the owners of the school, proprietors of the school, they have a duty. Number one, fear of God. That is when the religious bodies will now come to have their own role to play in the circumstances. We have churches in this country, too many. We have mosques, too many. Malams are many, religious leaders, community leaders, but what are we teaching people? Are we only going to preach about our religion in terms of spreading the gospel of the world? Or we are also doing it and combining it with moral education? Why do we lack morality? Why do we lack fear of God? How on earth somebody who have the God to kill a child entrusted in him, how on earth the children within the school will become demons among themselves and they will be killing one another?
Okay, Barrister.
It tells you, I learned of a case in Meduguri. A child, a pupil in Meduguri slashing the throat of a colleague of his in the same school. It tells you that the parenting has failed. And those parents, they go to churches, they go to mosque. What are the imams and the pastors telling them in those religious places?
Okay, Barrister, we'll come to the religious angle of it, but let's quickly go back to the issue of inspection. And before we engage you further, let's take this report coming from NTA Ibadan on inspection.
Yes.
Violence against children has taken a worrisome dimension in Nigeria in recent times. What makes the development more disturbing is as a result of increasing cases of violence against children which are threatening school system in different parts of the country. Whereas school is expected to play a pivotal role in the life of a child, which goes beyond reading and writing, but also teaches moral values, norms and tradition that will ensure conformity to law and respect for authority in the society. But the narrative is fast changing, with violence and all forms of anomalies now manifesting in schools. The Inspectorate Department is an organ of Ministry of Education expected to help in the standardization of education in states. The concept of inspection, which is as old as Western education, could be traced to the 1882 Education Ordinance of the colonial administration to have a form of control over growth and development in schools. The existence of the Inspectorate Department was at a time very popular in the history of education system in the country, such that the visitation of inspectors to school was usually greeted with fear. What has changed in the system?
I left the school system 2011, and as a principal, I believe they are still active.
Are schools now being inspected the way it's supposed to be? Are we really checking all the attendants? Are the teachers doing the needful? Are they teaching? Are they adding moral value into it? They have added civics education, I agreed. It's one thing to be theoretical. The practical aspect is what matters to us now. If the child have heard about the theoretical aspect of the moral value. What about the practical aspects? Are we monitoring them?
They go to school occasionally. They are not staying with the teachers in the school. They are not protecting the teachers. They are only inspecting them. At least that they go there occasionally.
According to the UNICEF, it is estimated that up to 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional violence or neglect globally, with an opinion that the menace could be prevented.
Let me start from you, media. We have heard so much about government. All these areas need to be more emphasized. We should not promote what has happened, but we have to promote what we should do in order to be able to correct this society.
Violence against children undermines the social and economic development of communities and nations, and this is the more reason parents, schools, government agencies, and other stakeholders must intensify effort to put an end to violence against children by all means.
Thank you, NTA Badon, quite enlightening. And some of the people that spoke in that package reminded me of something. When we're younger, if you hear proprietor, school principal, you can't be expecting to see somebody below 50 or 55 years. You expect that that person is experienced. But nowadays, we see proprietors like we have 30, 25, 35, who have not tasted life. But we're talking yesterday, Ustaz Agbarere. Yesterday, our guest with one of our packages talked about social media and the impact it was making. And some were of the opinion that it's more negative than positive. Following our line of discourse, you are of the opinion that there's some negative impacts from social media on our children.
Yes, I stand by my opinion over that. Nowadays, we access pictures, some content easily. Our children, we're buying phone for them. In our homes, we have computer games that we give them. So they have access to a lot of bad things that influence them at the end of the day. Imagine somebody playing a game where you see violence being displayed. A game where somebody will have the cutlass or something and be eating another fellow, even though it's a game pictorially. But and they will even show the blood spilling on the floor. When such a child is being indulged or is indulging in playing that type of game, he sees somebody, hey, I've killed him. He will even say, I kill him. When you take a child even to a showroom now, what he will say is that I want to buy sword. A sword or gun, I need gun. What is the meaning of gun? Is gun something to play and to be friendly with? Teach your child in the home front. Teach them the moral. Don't tell them alone that, yes, this is what God said. Because nowadays, you send something to your children in their places where they are. Even in the morning, you send content to them. Fear God, this and that. When they hear fear God alone, that doesn't make them to fear God. Call them together in the place of worship. Tell them, fear God. Don't harm your fellow being. Be respectful to the elders. Your teachers in school, take them like the demigod. Respect them because they are teaching you. Let them imbibe the culture of morality, the culture of your place. That is very important and is key as well. Number 3, you said something about now those days that are the teachers those days used to be very old, 50. No, I disagree. That comes to your mind because you were very young that time. I remember our teachers those days, maybe 25 years, 30 years, when I was also young. But because of the disparity in our age and in our size, how we look, what is just different is that those teachers were well trained. They have training. They know how to correct a child, even without beating him. Nowadays, we are only violent against the children. And when you beat them, they get hardened.
They get defiant.
When you beat them, it gets to a point that they won't be pained again. That is the psychological aspect of it. A teacher that does not read the psychology of learning or of teaching, how do you think that teacher will be able to teach well? I did teaching something education when I was young, when I did a diploma in Arabic Islamic studies and Yoruba, including teaching. They taught us how to teach people. You should learn to understand the student. And the background that a puppy comes from is very important.
I need to, yes, hold that thought. Very interesting. Modern day teaching, modern day techniques, modern day children.
I like that.
So that we can be pushing them forward. Let's just hold those candid thoughts. We're going to check up with Suleiman's package now. He's focusing on the role of religious institutions in this very important fight against violence against our children.
In the average Nigerian family system, religious indoctrination is the first orientation a child receives, as parents ensure that children are brought up in their faith. Despite religious doctrine being held in high regard in the country, it in fact constitutes a major factor hindering Nigeria's national development. This is evident in the systemic conflict and insecurity fueled by religious fundamentalists in Nigeria. Ironically, in spite of the massive expansion and rise in religious activities in Nigeria, there is a drop in values, morality, and godliness. Bigotry, widespread corruption, disregard for due process and rule of law, kidnappings, ritual killings, acts of terrorism, ethnic and religious clashes are just a few of the widespread disparities that paint an often quoted paradox that Nigerians are very religious but ungodly.
If you don't have a relationship, but you believe in a thing based on what you have heard and what you have been told and probably where you congregate and fellowship, of course you can be a religious man without being godly.
Nigeria are religious actually. You know, we have Christians and Muslims in this our great country. When it comes to religion, when you touch either a Muslim or a Christian, they will spark. You touch the Prophet of Islam or somebody in Islam, they will be talking, doing whatever, sometimes burning things. You understand? Likewise, Christians. But actually, when it comes to giving them position, okay, this is position, hold this position. You understand? So they will cheat. They will steal Nigerian money.
The question that is beckoning for answers is the fact that do we get it right? Do we follow the foundation, the tenet, the true tenet, the practices? And what we have all around us today could truly tell us that we are not getting it right. Whichever religion you talk about, because the essence of religion all over the world, as planned by God, is the cohesion of unity, cohesion of purpose, cohesion of peace, cohesion of mind, cohesion of progress.
While citizens must bear their fair share of responsibility for societal decline, the religious and political leaders of the country must also be held accountable. The extensive corruption that has pervaded the religious and political leadership of Nigeria is reflected in the loss of values. You find religious leaders charging for accelerated prayer requests, political leaders spearheading bribery, subversion of justice, and so forth. How then is a difference supposed to reflect between the leaders and the led? Under this leadership, it is the norm for citizens to take bribe in the workplace before putting someone's file forward, solicit for sexual or monetary favors in exchange for a contract, to pass an exam, gain employment or promotion.
They are doing it, but even the pastors, they are not doing what they're supposed to do to the church members. Because one, as a pastor, you need to help your church members to raise them up. Because when you raise them up, they will be able to serve God. Because now you see that people will be paying tithe. Pastors will be riding different types of cars. But the church members, they will be striking to church. Some people don't even have shoes to come to church.
But the pastor cannot just jump into our mindset to change the mind. No. The pastor will do his best. Just as Christ came to do his best, he was criticized, killed. So we are supposed to follow the steps. Pastors are doing their best, but it's as if their best is not enough. No, it is we, the Christians and the believers, that need to change the narrative.
There is cheating everywhere. There is cheating in government. There is teaching in leadership. There is teaching in politics. But they come back to church. They come back to mosque. They even observe Thanksgiving for it. For the fact that they could come back to church, they could come back to mosque for Thanksgiving to pay homage. They are religious. They are religious. They have the sense of God. Even when they are wrong, they have feeling of where to go back to. But the question at stake is that, is their religiosity acceptable before God? Is their religiosity, the practice they claim they practice, could they give them eternal rest? Because there is life after death. There is paradise. There is hell. That's the end of everybody.
Non-religious societies in China and Japan, for instance, have a stronger value system and low tolerance for corruption because of a value-based system that is implemented from the leadership level down to the citizens. This has propelled them into a highly technological, industrial and competitive economy. Perhaps the leadership and citizenry of Nigeria could progress just as competitively if the focus shifts from religion to actual practice of godliness. We are still here with Ustaz Agbarire, and of course to our viewers, you can send in your contribution, your question, your observation, so that we can get to share it with the rest of the viewers. I'm sure the numbers will be on the bottom of our screen there. Now, coming back to you, Ustaz, you've seen that report. It's very obvious that we have mosques everywhere in this part of the country. We have churches scattered everywhere. So it's very easy to say that we are very religious people, but we are not godly, given the reality that we are, confronting in our society today.
Yes, we're very correct about that. Honestly, religiosity of Nigeria as a nation is never in doubt. We are a religious country. We are a religious people. What I mean by that is that our people, you either belong to one religion or the other. You can't see a Nigerian who will say that I'm not religious, because we value our spirituality, connection with God. But from the clip, what I could just bring out as my own take is that godliness, fear of God, and goodliness, being good, we've thrown that into the bin. What we do is the outward performance of our religious duties. We perform our religious duty, prayer. Prayer is to observe rakah, 4 rakah, standing, supplicating. We perform it outwardly. People will see that I go to the mosque. But people will not see the mosque that I went to, showing inside me or in me.
Thank you very much.
They need to have their rights protected.
Barrister, it's been an engaging conversation with you, and I'm sure everything you have said so far are quite on point. Thank you very much for sharing this moment with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, right now we go on a break, and after that we're still expecting another guest.
Kendall, it's great to have your company. We're talking yesterday about the challenges of violence against children. Today, we're looking at the way forward.
And of course, we will not stop talking about, the need to provide solutions to some of these challenges we are facing in our society today. And to advance this conversation, we have joined us in the studio, Barrister Mani Ochuboju is also a parent, and wish to welcome you to Weekend Deal Studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Yeah, for the entire duration of that story, you just kept nodding your head, agreeing with what the spokesperson in that report was saying. And wherever you look today, Barrister, home, the society, the school, there's too much violence, I must say. And now, another twist is the fact that people are being introduced to cultism, and it's like there's no end in sight. What really should we begin to do as a society?
It is actually heartbreaking that the incidence of violence is increasing, particularly in our society. Violence against children is actually a universal phenomenon, but against children is becoming outrageous. And particularly in Nigeria, it is heartbreaking. The statistics are absolutely shocking. What do we do? Already things are being done. I think we need to do more. Things are being done as regards the Child Rights Act. Things are being done at the welfare society level. Things are being done at the ministry level. Things are being done by even enhancing the capacity of the police, the teachers, and caregivers. Things are being done about enhancing the awareness of this issue. Things are being done by you, media organizations, civil society organizations, religious organizations, and some of the other organizations you profiled in your reports. Cultism, particularly in schools and in secondary schools, is again the bastardization of the notion of what adults like us did while we were in the universities. It's a misinterpretation of what it is. There are fraternities. You have all sorts of fraternities in school that were lively, palm wine drinkers club, they were lively, fun. It's not particularly violent. It's just for socialization and for bonding and for learning particular aspects of our culture and ways of life. Having fraternities in schools universally, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. You have ladies and young girls having their own sororities, as they call it in Europe and in America, and other forms. It's okay. So long as the objectives are kosher, the objectives are sane, the objectives are to civilize and to socialize and to enhance good governance, even human rights, and other particular positive objectives. But it becomes negative when it becomes bastardized, when it becomes vulgarized. And that is the problem we have today. Cultism in Nigerian schools have become vulgarized because there's a cloud of secrecy around what some fraternities were doing. The young ones got it wrong. Say, oh, they beat people up. No. Oh, they are violent. No. You are just being ignorant. I think we need to re-educate our people, the young ones in particular, that they got it wrong. There's nothing wrong with raising their awareness. There's nothing wrong with re-educating them. Yes, it's all right to have your small school fraternities. Let it be properly supervised. Let it not be vulgarized. Let it not be abused. And let these negative attitudes of the other forms of cults in schools in the 80s when we were in the universities. It wasn't even called cults. They put signboard, come and join palm wine drinkers, come and join this. And you choose, you're new in school. Is it palm wine drinkers? Is this? Which one?
Unfortunately, today, sometimes you don't even get to choose. You are forced into it. And for some people, they actually see it as a way of protecting themselves against some, elements that, set out to harm them. And some of them would tell you that even this idea of corporal punishment in school, belonging to a fraternity, will actually make you immune to them. But before we go into all of that, let's take this next report, which borders on corporal punishment in schools.
Children, being who they are, sometimes exhibit undesirable behavior that need to be reprimanded. In our society, in such instances, more often than not, the deliberate infliction of physical pain, known as corporal punishment, is used as response to such undesirable behavior. What is the effect of corporal punishment?
Corporal punishment simply means physical punishment, that is flogging, spanking, or caning, in order to cause pain for the person that they are flogging. There are offenses that students normally do that there is no way you just leave them or just punish them without flogging them. You have to flog them so that they will understand that what they did is not right, it's not proper. Sometimes you just go to a class with your cane. You don't need to beat any student, but by you going with that cane, they will behave. Seeing that particular cane means class control. It helps in controlling the class.
Experts say that an increase in child aggression and antisocial behavior, such as bullying,
can be directly related to corporal punishment inflicted on children not only in schools but also at home.
Children watch, observe, and copy what they see. Now, why I said home, especially mothers, most homes where you find house help, and you find mothers, when a house help does something wrong, she's reprimanded before the children. And children observe and see. Based on what they see, they develop those tendencies. And when they find themselves in an environment, they try to translate what they have observed into that bullying situation.
Children who grow under tender situation end up becoming friendlier, more compassionate, kinder, and all that to their peers. Children who grow under strong, overly strict, children who are punished and don't know why they were punished. You know, our parents used to do that. They'll punish you and you don't even know. You want to know, sometimes, what did I do? You slap you and say, if I hear "pem," and you don't know what you did when they are doing that to you.
What other effective methods of reprimand can be used to curtail undesirable behavior in children?
Too much of corporal punishment is bad because it leads to the child becoming more aggressive. Because when you beat him today, you beat him tomorrow, then the next day he will say, after all, she's just going to beat me, so nothing is going to happen. That is it. It depends on the kind of punishment and the kid. First of all, minors, those that are below 7 years, there are things that you do in order to punishment without using a cane. That is, in a classroom, for example, there is a particular corner that we call naughty corner. So when a child misbehaved or did something wrong, you ask him to go and sit at the naughty corner. By him going there, he knew that what he did was wrong. In most cases, they end up crying, the children. And for a teenager, for example, let's say 7 years upwards, up to let's say 15 or even 16 years, if it is a boarding school, mostly they will be asked to go and wash maybe the toilets. They will ask to pick dirt. You ask to sweep the whole environment, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they will even ask them to kneel down, you understand, without even using cane or something of that nature.
Corporal punishment can be said to be as old as time itself. Schools, families, and the society at large need to learn non-violent and effective methods. As the saying goes, learning is a continuous process.
Thank you, NTA Kaduna. Detailed, talking about corporal punishments in our schools. Before that, we're talking with Barrister Mani, and we had talked about what was before, what is now. The youngsters seem to be diversely negatively influenced to the point where it has become outrageous. And if we're not in Nigeria, we'll say unbelievable. Corporal punishment in our schools. How is it necessary? Is it a requirement to gain discipline for these children so that they can become responsive and responsible adults?
Corporal punishment, it's a polarizing topic. It tends to divide opinion. The school I attended in Cross River State as a youngster, there was corporal punishment, but it was reasonable, it was moderate. And it tended to discipline us and teach us stuff. But it's only used in the case where there have been very extremely wrong behavior by a student. And having experienced corporal punishment in a moderate sense that instill discipline in us, I think we should not throw it totally away.
Definitely, different views regarding the corporal punishment. And as a parent, and a lot of people are saying that, most especially from the previous report, it's all, it all boils down to how the parents are able to train, their words. And this next report is actually on that, the role of parents when we talk about, curtailing the excesses of violence against children in Nigeria. After that, we still have our guests here with us.
Child's upbringing is not an easy task.
Parents have important role to play in the home front to raise children that will be useful to the family and society at large. However, some parents have failed in their responsibilities to their children, and as long as parents do not play their role well, these children will continue to deviate from normal societal norms and standards.
To raise a good child, give values. Values such as integrity, teach it, model it, prepare the children to know the consequences of not having it. Values such as integrity, honesty, love for humanity, care for the environment, and self-preservation too. When we prepare a child with all these values and these skills, we'll be able to see that that child will turn out well. The child will turn out well. The child will grow to do things right most of the time.
Generally, the parents' habits and behaviors are models for the children. Whatever they observe from their parents' habits and lifestyle mostly affects them. Hence, the home is a component of the society, and whatever happens at home reflects in the society. Parents should therefore educate their children in character and learning for a good foundation. When the foundation is right, there will be peaceful and orderly society.
Notice a lot of parents feel that I paid fees, and that fee I paid is for the school to do everything. That is wrong. It's something that we know some of us in this education system are beginning to, continuously remind our parents about, that we cannot shy away from our responsibility. The first person, the first teacher, the first trainer for a child is the parent. And the essence of school is to support them and not to take over their job. So parents should not think schools are there to get their job done.
Furthermore, while it is important for parents to focus their attention on their children's academic grades and extracurricular activities, they should not forget to sacrifice more time and effort into nurturing another component of child's success and development, which is a good person. Parents should not abandon their responsibility of providing guidance to their children in pursuit of wealth, which cannot be a substitute for moral teaching.
If that mindset and understanding of the essence of having children is there will always be a way. That is my belief. And I know that I'm responsible. And then it will also help us to even mind the number of children we have. We're not just going to be having so many that we know we can't cater for. We'll have just enough that I know that by my means, I can cater for 3, I can cater for 2, I can cater for 4. I know that there is a former president in this country who at a point kept encouraging that 4 children maximum is just okay for a family. So, and the essence is so that we can give them the very best.
A well-brought-up child will not be a bully in school and will always be found worthy in character and learning, then becomes a worthy citizen of the society.
Interesting conversation there. We're talking with Barrister Mani before we took that package, and we're now talking about, we got to learn a bit more about the role of parents. Proprietresses say parents are negating their responsibility, which is training the child from the cradle. Parents are saying, we've done our bits, which is a continuous journey, but our kids will go to school and we hand them over to you just for a time. It's not forever. Do what you are trained to do while you are there and keep us abreast. Violence against children in our society on the upsurge. Platforming it to what will happen in schools and the society, Barrister.
One needs to happen in school. Again, it's looking at the child's right. The child has rights. Whether we implement it or not, the child has right. The child has right to be protected, the right to their dignity, the right to be safe, the right to be properly educated, the right to have a safe environment.
To play.
relaxation and all of those, those should be provided for the child. And the schools usually, at least from my experience, I was in boarding school, the schools should continue to play the role they played in our time, where it was a place of moral and educational development, a place for socialization. Some of my best friends today were people I met while in school. And we tend to talk alike, we tend to think alike, and we tend to like similar things. We tend to like sports. The sports that were popular in my school then, like football and other things, are still the same sports we are still interested in today, including tennis, table tennis, and stuff like that. So these are places for socialization. They should continue to play that role. We should minimize violence. There's no room for violence as much as possible.
Even as we say thank you, Barrister Mani, they say your guest spoke my mind. This is coming from Comrade Razak Olokoba, is a public affairs analyst. He said there's no country that can prosper with a bold culture. And he said we do this in abundance in Nigeria. He said we're imposing the Western culture on ourselves, particularly in the manner in which we raise our children, which has informed the major setback we're facing now. He said if we stick to the real tenets of Africa on how we raise our children, this will not be happening.
I agree.
Well, thank you very much, Barrister, for sharing your time with us. And quickly, this one is coming from Queen. She says, I don't know what English NTA is speaking. For me, anyone who hurts my child, I will hurt back double fold. If you slap my child, I'll slap back. That is the only solution to this rubbish. We must not pamper evil people. Of course, it's good to be concerned about your words, but it's certainly not a good thing to take laws into your hands.
That's correct.
All I'll just say is that we've been told that NTA is watched nationwide, even as we speak. People in Benue State, Makadi, Lagos, Benin, they are watching us. So watch, learn, listen, spread the message.
Well, you've heard that all from Thelma. And of course, this issue of violence against children is something that must be stopped immediately. Bye for now.